My name is Hélène Binet, and I'm a photographer. I've been photographing for almost 40 years, let's say. I'm still analog, which is very important for me. So working with film and lots of black and white, spending time in my studio, printing, elaborating my concept. Most of my practice, they've been interested in space and what is space for us and how do you perceive and what is the connection between architecture and space and photography. So, of course, architecture space, it's very connected, but then we perceive in one specific way, but photography is something very different. And I am a photographer, so that's the base of my practice. Yes, it's been a long journey, but full of big questions and maybe sometimes unresolved questions, because they are two very different worlds. What we perceive from the space and what we can communicate with photography. So that's why I'm so interested in it. I definitely think part of my process to look at the most subtle aspect of a space, and how is it made, how the weathering has been changing, and how marks have been made by human beings. Why do I do that? I really want to be able to photograph what I can touch. I mean, analog, it's about touching and making with something that you can relate it physically with. So it's definitely the way I express myself. But of course, I mean, the plays themselves were made with that extreme care and intimacy of finding the right stone, finding the right wood, finding the right location. So there was an echo that is very important, and is the intimacy of making the space, first of all. That's the number one. I was always interested in ground. I was always interested in, let's say, also things like history of carpet, the role of carpet in barbarian life of women that only lived with these things on the floor, and that was the only thing they took from a tent to another tent that didn't have furniture, and the formation of land, the sand. It's been always a very important part of my work to understand the ground on which we operate, we live, we're born, we die. So it's a natural thing now embodying myself that will guide my thought when I'm in a place. Yeongmyeon, there the relation with the ground is so unique, where you can almost forget about the long building, but only think about a place which has a gentle curve somehow that is like our universe, and where every step has a meaning, which is beautiful, between the eternal and us and the sacred. So when I really could focus on that, I really extremely enjoy. Also to frame an image where there's a line for the soul of the emperor to leave us. It's really beautiful. So I never had this experience, and it was definitely something that I extremely inspired by. Saint-Sévon and SEOUL'S, they are completely embedded in the surrounding. They are embraced by the surrounding. You can't really distinguish the threshold so clearly. SEOUL'S is a garden, first of all, where there's pavilions. So even there, the relationship with the surrounding is stronger. You enter by walking through a bamboo path that already prepares you to say you are in connection with nature. Leave behind all your worries and thought about the city and come in to experience something different. And this is very beautifully done. So again, completely unique way to connect with nature, and very very free. You don't have strict moment where you feel the nature has been manipulated. It's just there. It feels natural. Sometimes they are very humble observation. When I arrived in the first site of Beyond-Saint-Savon, the first approach was such a journey, because if you go to Beyond-Saint-Savon, you walk through a slow staircase where the building is revealed bit by bit, and you are almost digested by it. Like John Hedrick always said, that the perception of architecture is the most complex of all the form of art, because you enter the body, you are digested. So in that case, it was such a slow and beautiful entering in that body to be exposed to an empty place, which is the courtyard. So wonderful first introduction to an architecture which is not about glorious towers of things that you have to see from far away, but they are based on experience. I cannot tell you everything. What you feel and what you smell or dream of when you arrive in Beyond-Saint-Savon, it's unique and it's different every time, and cannot be brought into the very simple bidimensional, often black and white surface. So I want you to grasp one thing and take it with you. I sat down there and I started to look at the different stones, the different wood, and almost having a dialogue with them and say, oh, look at the stones. He's the old guy. He's the one that's been always there, and he supports something very important, a column. But there's another one a bit further that looks like he's not doing much. He's just there maybe to sit and look at the moon. Doesn't mean that he's really there, but to look at them and to make them alive, I need to have this dialogue, which is, it's my own invention. But then I say, look at this one. He's facing a tree. All his life he's been there facing a tree. So there's a dialogue between these two. 100 years ago, it was there. That's very beautiful to imagine how do they look at each other. So any spiritual moment doesn't come because I go there with a very high view, and because it will not come. But I melt into the place and create this friendship to let things coming out through the camera. I remember it must have been now 25 years ago, Peter Zumthor gave a lecture at the Royal Academy here. There was a big audience, and I just finished the book with Lars Müller, and we all go there, and he comes and he said, I'm not going to show picture. I'm going to put some music on, go and see my building. Of course, as a photographer, I said, oh, pity, you're not going to show the picture. But he said, if you want to know my building, you got to see it. I'm going to show the music I like, the things that inspire me, the thought that went through my mind. But this is true. We can't tell the whole story of a building with those very simple photographs. I don't want to say my photograph is the photograph of a building, because it is impossible to say that building can be reduced in a photograph. So it is more about maybe allowed you to enter for 1 second in that place and start to imagine, because with our imagination, we know when we read a book or when we dream, we build space, unique space. And this is what I want to give you, the possibility with the image. And to give you that possibility to enter, you need that moment. You need maybe a crack, you need a question, you need something not defined, you need a bit of materiality. If not, an image which is too perfect, too technical, it's far away. You are amazed, you like it, but it doesn't enter your unconscious. It doesn't create question. What is it? Did I see this place? Does it belong to my range of places that I've seen or dreamt of? And the connection with memory also, it's very important. When you arrive to a new place, I think it's a little bit like if you are in the front of a wild animal. Let's say you're not going to go and say, I want to know you, and I just go aggressively. You got to sit, you got to wait, you got to create that link in between this presence, this identity, and very humble, and started to know each other. I hope that the work can encourage to really sit down and talk with the stone and not make photographs when you arrive to a location, maybe draw and take your time. And that sense of peace, of meditation, of intimate relationship with one little part will be celebrated. And that's, I think, the way you can visit a place, understand a place, and not think you know the place. Even now on the phone, young architects, they spend, 1 second on an image and they think they know the building. That's scary because it's limiting. If I can encourage moment of perception, I think then the spirit of the building will appear different to them, not the same one. We all have a different one inside us that has to come. And also to encourage that attitude towards the making of a new project, hopefully. But again, I'm not an urbanist, I'm not an architect, I'm really a photographer and very much into the world of emotion and expressions and communication through my images.